we're back. One Print Your Games podcast about what's new and awesome in 3D printing for gamers. I'm one of your hosts, Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param, and I'm joined by
Kristen Sowards, also known as Seventh Mastery. And we have an awesome guest today.
We do! Scott from Comet Lord Miniatures! Welcome to the show!
Thanks for having me.
For those of you who do not know who Comet Lord Miniatures are, they make some of the, and I guess it's just you make, right, Scott? You're a one-man band? Yeah.
Indeed.
Scott makes some of the most wonderful, detailed, sharp, stylized, and horrific critters that you can 3D print today.
That's true.
Is that about accurate, Kristen?
Yeah, I mean, I would say obviously I was immediately glommed onto it. Though really quickly, as much as like the Eldritch horror, cosmic stuff, monster vibe, is there, and there's vague planescape undertones, which I of course love. But the spiritual weapons actually were the thing that I think started printing the most. Almost every mini that has a weapon, you do a spiritual weapon with, right?
Yeah. I was just thinking, is it every single one? And I remember, I think even the characters with like firearms, I might make them into spiritual weapons.
Like, I wouldn't be surprised. I'm pretty sure that like quad crossbow thing also had one, maybe?
I feel like it probably does.
Might. Yeah. Like, I wouldn't be surprised. But like, yeah, especially, I'm just going to blame Critical Role for something really quick. Post Gesture, Lollipop, people have really got into like doing the most wild, weird spiritual weapons out there. Yep. And I would say that like to actually have a scythe or, like a big double greatsword thing or whatever, there's not really anybody out there who has the variety you have. And there's kind of just a nice ad you throw in. And it's the tip of the proverbial iceberg of awesome that you throw at us. So, but there might be people who didn't watch your first appearance on our show. Do you want to tell us a little bit about how you got into gaming?
The too long didn't read. I got into GURPS. Customized the system to the point of I didn't recognize it anymore. Eventually made my way to 5e. Played the most unique character of a tiefling warlock. And then
fist bump, Edgelord Unite. Sorry, kidding.
Yeah. And made my way back to Pathfinder, and I've wound up just going back to 5th edition again.
Yeah. We got people in chat saying hi, David and Bear and Damie and James specifically saying, were those the weapons I have used? Yes, indeed. Those are the weapons, the very weapons that your telekinetic warrior used were those weapons. So yes, you've seen tons and tons of Scott's work on the table.
If you were to describe what your miniature art style is, how would you describe it, Scott?
Well, I would like to say it's high detail, dark fantasy, and then the 3 gothic cosmic body horror.
I will give a big verifying can confirm on all 3 of those things.
Yeah.
Troy says sexy yet disturbing. I mean bathtub lich. Which I still,
oh my god, why do
thank you
keep
for
bringing up the bathtub lich?
Because it's kind of my fault.
If you all recoiling in horror, it is because Scott does wonderful, well execution, great artistry, and some of the creepy things are extremely creepy and send me into nightmares where I want to go back to my cute little fuzzy miniatures.
Well, I'm also going to throw out high detailed, but also durable. Like I feel like not only do your prints have a ton of crisp lines and a lot of like filigree and detail work that like the amount you pour into the equipment and stuff, but they print well and they're very resilient. Like those weapons have been knocked all over the board. And, yes, I did print a little bit. There was a little bit of tenacious in them and they were with a transparent ABS so that they kind of look spectral, but it doesn't matter. Those things were like well put together, even with their big, like wispy stands and everything. And the physics Super, super cool. I don't know.
And that actually brings me up to my first question I have for you. We've been doing this gig of 3D printing for several years now, and you've been involved in it pretty much since the boom started. What is your opinion now of what makes a good 3D printable miniature? This was a topic we had a little while ago, but I would love to hear a sculptor's take on that.
Oh boy. I feel like there is a long answer to that, and there's so many facets.
We have time.
Well, yeah. Recently, I've actually been kind of helping another artist out with feedback on some of the commissions they've been getting, and giving my take on like how these commissions are going, what can be improved, and all that. So, I feel like I should be well versed for this answer, but all the things that come to mind is like you need to have like awesome silhouettes from all angles, because the reality is when you're playing on a table, everyone's seeing it from a different way or from perspective, and something I try to take an account for as a sculptor. But on the more creative angle, I think I love, at the end of the day, storytelling. If you can tell an awesome story in these, I want to say small miniatures, but reality, a lot of my catalog tends to be oversized nightmares. But if I can tell a story, I think it makes it just it brings it to the next level.
Yeah, like just looking at this skeleton warrior that I pulled up, there's a lot of like kind of innate storytelling into it. Like, how many skeletons have we seen in 3D printing? Hundreds. It's like one of the basic files that I think every sculptor is obligated to produce before they're allowed to get their ZBrush license. But this one has like swords running through it, and the one that's like really eye catching, is the sword that's going through the back of its head. And at first, when I was looking at it, I was like, "Oh, that's really cool. He's been stabbed through the back of its head, and the sword's coming through his mouth." And then I noticed, no, there is a complete cleave line along the top of his head and down the front of his jaw. He got chopped into the back of his head, and he's been stabbed so many times. This skeleton is building a story, and that story is telling me he is not to be messed with.
Exactly. Well, if you put this in front of your players and they see this thing's skewered with a bunch of swords, exactly what you said, like they look at it and go, maybe this won't be like every other skeleton we're fighting.
Not that the gigantic meat cleavers he's wielding in each hand. You do go extra with your weapons, I noticed. Like, it's not enough that they have swords. They have to have gigantic, cool, stylized meat cleavers. It's not enough that they have a crossbow. It needs to be a quad crossbow that looks like it can snipe from 10 miles away.
Yeah, I mean, try to make it awesome. I mean, there's a place for everyone to have a perfectly proportional weapon, but maybe it's a little bit of the like Soulsborne influence where things are 10 feet tall, wielding entire like pillars, trying to crush you.
Right. But we talked about this a little bit during your last interview. Like you mentioned Soulsborne, like video games and modern fantasy are definitely heavy inspirations for your work.
Definitely.
And do you think that there is more in modern fantasy depictions that artists should be paying attention to? Because I know that a lot of people talk about the classics, and some people like don't want to like involve video games in their fantasy world. And like I know there's a bunch of grognards that kind of get all grumbly about it, but I mean I love modern fantasy, and I want to see more of it.
Oh yeah, I think having a wide net of fantasies can only improve your art, right? And more references and just evolving your taste. Like I know personally, I've wanted to kind of dive into those like old JRPG art. I want to say booklets or like old game concept art, because
Mhm.
It's those really cool ideas that you just kind of don't see anymore.
So what are some of the ideas that you don't see anymore that you've brought into your work?
Oh, that's I mean, I feel like I'm still in that kind of Soulsborne category with my new project. I've definitely employed some like Bloodborne kind of body horror. This is inspired by the series Blasphemous. Yet again, like
Oh,
talk about a really cool like fantasy style that is inspired by like I think it's like Spanish Catholicism,
mhm.
if I remember correctly, and just taking my own spin at it, right?
So you're going. You mentioned that you include body horror as a common element in your theme. So, what is it about that you find appealing to bring into your art?
I think it even like comes back to the skeleton we were looking at. Like not necessarily that it's body horror, but that feeling that I want to bring out in like a D&D player, or when a DM drops this on the table and then they look at it, it's like, oh, that's a horrifying monster, and then you start to look at it a bit more and a bit more, and you go, oh no, like, this thing's much more terrible than I originally thought.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at something like this, and I guess if you look at something like something from Souls, the Inside Out Dragon, like it's a slow reveal as your mind fills in the blanks of what horrific things must have happened to get to this point. Your inner Sherlock Holmes is your enemy at that point.
Yeah, with my new project, there is a creature called the Lambskin Beast, which usually you'll see screenshots or renders of its head, and you can see that like uh, when I write the lore for it, it is a fusion between man and beast, and it's a sheep and a man. But yeah, when its mouth opens up, you see the mouth of a wolf kind of break through, and I try to keep those storytelling elements, and you can even see remnants of a human skull like on one side of its face. Stuff like that tells a deeply disturbing story, but something I hope that like dungeon masters can have fun with, and put a little terror in their game.
When you're doing that, do you actually like take that aspect on where you think like this is going to be used on a gaming table in this way specifically? Like, is it specifically as, oh wow, that's really cool, as a dungeon master that you kind of get in that mindset, or is it more just create the art and then just hope it gets used that way? Wow, that's neat.
I feel like the answer is yes.
Yes. I mean, fair.
Yeah, because the Lambskin Beast was actually something I ran in my own game for my players at the time, and inspired me to like get the sculpt really going. But it was something I was like stewing on for a bit, and I would hope that people use it in that sort of way. But I also have heard from plenty of people in like my community telling me how they use my miniatures, and it's nothing I planned for, but it's so cool to hear.
Yeah, definitely. One of the cool things I think you do, and that this is, I almost want to say a service you offer, is that you actually stream your sculpting process a lot, which I think is fascinating to watch.
I mean, I'm glad you find it fascinating. Full stop. I am not a great streamer, but I'm like, hey, if the community wants to hang out, see what I'm working on, wants to chat with me, I'll be working away here. I'm definitely not one of those streamers who's constantly interacting with the audience, unless we get into some like D&D loop or talking about or they asked me a question about sculpting, and hopefully I can give some insight on what I'm doing.
Yeah, I'm just
It's a real
thinking,
chill
like,
hangout.
yeah, it is a chill hangout, and just like watching even like a texture emerge, or like when you're like getting that shape and like pulling something out, like a, like you're actually creating like a structure underneath the flesh or whatever, and it starts to like bulge out, and you're starting to get this like, oh wow, like you see where it's actually like coming together. That is super cool, and also just like kind of chill to see like the details slowly kind of emerge and like fuse into that. I don't know. I have oftentimes found myself like, where did the last 45 minutes go? I've just been watching Scott like put scales on the side of this thing or like work on chainmail armor or whatever it was, like gone, complete fixation. So I find it very peaceful and like calming.
Yeah, that's also kind of what I hope is like maybe someone's at work, they want to throw something on in the background, or like maybe they work from home as well, because it's something I often do where I'll just lurk on Twitch and have some art streams, game streams up, and just have someone talking and hanging out in the background while I work.
Now, one of the things that we've seen criticized in other forms of the creative art community is that you have to be your own publicist, you have to be your own personality. It's not enough that you get to be your independent artist, that you've got to be out there and market it yourself, and then you've got to like be your own influencer, your own marketer. Do you think that's become true for the 3D sculpting world as well?
Yeah, to a certain degree. I mean, any indie artist is going to have to like market themselves. It's a reality is like I've had a chat with other like art Twitch streamers where it is kind of Twitch is a great avenue for making fans into like super fans, because they get to know you, they get to know the artist behind the art, and that can be a great thing. And you are kind of selling yourself at that point, because you are, when you start making these connections with your community, um, you're kind of having them invest in you as a person, rather than just the faceless entity dropping STLs out of nowhere, right?
There definitely was that moment for me, because I was like I saw you had Slod and or whatever we want to call them to not get in legal trouble, but chaos codes, and you had your cool dice that were not dice, they were creatures, but they were like almost like Modroni, but they were dice, and like all these things, and I was just kind of like, oh, this is really cool, and then like actually got to interact with you a little bit and watch your streams and stuff. I was like, oh, that's cool. And then you came on the show, and it was a transformation, right? Like, and I could see that being kind of like a process of how any of your customers / fans would transition through that. And that's obviously critical to building your community, but it's also critical to like pull down things like this new project you have coming up.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's a different way of marketing altogether, right? It's like I mostly lean on the idea that my art can speak for itself, and you don't need to know me. But if you want to, if I also open myself up to like the Twitch streams, the Discord channel or the server, if people want to interact with me, I am around. But I do like to keep that distance to a certain extent, because I'm not available for like hundreds of people to constantly interact with me. I don't think anyone is.
Now, one of the questions I am wondering is, you mentioned that you let your art speak for itself, and in a lot of ways, your art really does speak for itself, because your art is unlike anybody else's. You have such a very distinct style that just looking at one of your renders, instantly know it's a Comet Lord piece. Whereas a lot of, and this is no slight to other artists, but a lot of artists will fall back to a few established artistic styles that are very popular right now in order to reach audiences that really love that style, or maybe they really love that style. Do you think that is an important part of your success, or an important part of your process, and where does it play in the industry?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a double-edged blade at the same time, where it has contributed to me kind of carving out my own space. I think you guys have used the term boutique, right? Where I am more of a person who will give you this high detailed, small statue of a creature and not really a provider of armies. It's just, as an indie creator, it's a lot to put out, and not quite the way I like to work on things. But so I have carved out this space for myself to provide this sort of art, and I try to reach those people. We could talk about algorithms all day, where my art just does not reach people like I think it should. But I imagine there might be more success in going into those styles you mentioned, and taking on those more common, would we say, common tropes of fantasy. Because you're going to reach more people that way. But part of my break and my me getting burnout is also like I do need to pursue things that I have interest and inspiration to do. So I think that's also part of carving out what Comet Lord Miniatures is, and carving out like my style in the scene.
Now, you mentioned you took a break. Could you talk about why you chose to take a break and why you're coming out of the break now?
Those are dangerous words to use, me coming out of a break. Anyone watching this, because every time I've posted, I do get like messages going like, when are the monthly releases starting again? I'm like, oh no. But I have been working on a few projects in the background over the past few months. I took a break, actually. It's been a year now, because I was hitting serious burnout, and it was just a nice kind of end point for monthly releases as they were, because I had pre-supported the chunk of catalog that existed before pre-supporting was a requirement. And so my releases were about to just shrink down because I didn't want to re-release pre-supported content, because a lot of people who are like long-term patrons, they're not really getting their money's worth if I'm just half the release they already have. And yeah, so it was a mixture of burnout. It was a nice kind of cap point, and I needed to find the enjoyment of sculpting again, which I definitely have.
Oh, that's great. And we know when a few years ago, when when everything exploded, there was pretty much only like the one template that everybody was following. Like, in order to be a sculptor, you were going to do the monthly plan. And at first, it was like 5 to 10 a month was okay, because that's what Line Tower was putting out. That was what AV was putting out. That was what a bunch of them were putting out. And then slowly the industry changed, and we definitely started seeing more artists, especially some of the more boutique artists, burning out or changing to other release systems. Do you think that the monthly release schedule is kind of required still for people entering this space, or do you think that there is more opportunities for other release styles?
Oh, see, that's something I'm trying to figure out myself, because simply put, if I return to the same release schedule as I was doing before, I'm just going to burn out again.
Right.
So I've been toying with the idea, like, do I do like every 2 months? Is it smaller releases every month? And it's figuring out what makes sense for me as a sculptor, as a creator. But I won't lie, it's also figuring out like how to keep people around and interested. It's it's that weird kind of yet again algorithms, right, where you just want to keep posting and posting. If I'm only doing six releases a year, are people going to forget that I'm in the like roster of things you can choose from? Not sure.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen creators like Monolith Arts go and do Kickstarters regularly. I think they did quarterly for a while, and they started kind of doing, bi-monthly, and now they've launched their, monthly tribe, and I think maybe a Patreon also. But like that seems to have been reversed from most of the people. And I think on your end, you were very candid. You were very clear with everybody in the Patreon, and I think like I had no like objections to the way you handled that at all. And I think it shows great respect for yourself as an artist to just say, hey, I need to do this. And I think more people maybe could take a note, because I do see some other creators out there. I'm like, you can tell like a lot of them will push themselves. We've even had people on the show, I'm not going to name names, but we've had people on the show who push themselves to a point where they just disappear, right? Like they're just done. And I would much rather still see you again and see you refreshed and excited again, and I think it was a good choice. But
yeah, I think any artist that is not pushing themselves to burnout, reality, like everyone wants to see the person do better, feel better, and and as an artist, like obviously respect yourself, but I'd even argue you're gonna make better stuff, like if you're feeling much better.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about you, Kristen, but when I'm turning in stuff at a deadline, sometimes some corners get cut.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Not at all. Nothing.
Never.
Okay.
Never. No. Never.
All right. And like I like as someone who is still involved in the monthly release grind, it is frazzling, it is exhausting, and I can absolutely understand hoping, praying that there is another way to make this work, because I do not know how long-term sustainable that is for this industry to rely on that as its primary method of getting cool toys to print.
Well, yeah, like it's obviously people want your content and they want these awesome miniatures and all this cool stuff to print, but there is someone behind there churning this stuff out, and eventually like something's got to give. And fortunately, I mean, there are so many people to choose from that, like, if one creator takes a break, you got so many others that can like fill your like content void.
What do you think about like one of the recent trends we saw last year, of like the rise of Witch Song, and then the dozens of $1 miniature
Oh no.
monthly releases?
You had to ask me this question.
If you don't want to answer this question, we can happily move along.
I mean, is it a hot take to say it's completely unsustainable? Like it also as an artist, it devalues your work, and you're just banking on the idea of like social media reach and like gathering as many people as possible. It's like getting a mailing list, right? But yeah, it's and I am not a fan of the $1 releases, and I probably shouldn't go too deep into how I feel about this one.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, we don't need to put you in too much hot seat. It's not our style.
No, it's okay. It's okay. So, though, just kind of break it down. You do like you've done 10 minis for $10 before. So, like, where is it? Just because there's that low point of entry, that there's a low ask? You think is that what it is? That's challenging for you?
So what I've seen from the $1 stuff is you're putting out like something I would charge probably $10 alone, but for $1.
Yeah.
And I like to kind of go back on my old $10 releases. I would prefer not to release that many minis for $10 if I can avoid it. but I do
Right,
know the
right.
market has a certain ask for like what you get for your $10. And that's
Right.
like, and earlier when I was talking about like, oh, do I do smaller releases every month or a release every 2 months? I'm also trying to figure out, wait, how much do I actually deliver every release? Because like looking back on it, it's like 30 cents per miniature. And
Right.
it definitely feels yeah, like it devalues your work, especially when I think I don't want to say for sure, because I think I remember $1 patrons, you get like a boss plus a PDF and maybe some minions, or am I
Dep
just
depends
There's
on
been
depends
different
on
yeah,
which of them.
versions.
Yeah, there's been a lot of them, yeah. But that
yeah,
I've
so
seen
like,
that for sure. Yeah.
yeah, so when I see that kind of stuff, I kind of go like, yeah, as an indie artist, it's like, oh boy, that's we're racing to the bottom, and
Right,
I'm not a
right.
fan of that.
Okay.
Yeah. And like, yeah, and like obviously the other contrast is like the mega crews that are putting out literally hundreds of miniatures for the $10, and like how is that even close to sustainable kind of situations. Oh, but there seems to be a way. There is other release methods that we have been seeing people go to, releasing semi-regular crowdfunding attempts, and like that's how Ian Lovecraft and all the wonderful terrain they do comes out, and like Asgard Rising's periodic crew. I'm pretty sure that Daka Daka is mostly funded through their crowdfunding campaigns at this point. Um, what are your thoughts on crowdfunding campaigns, Scott?
Well, I'm currently gearing up for one.
What? No.
What?
No way, you guys didn't know. Yeah, the Comic Codex. My community wanted 5e stats for my monsters, and
Ooh.
seems like a good idea to get my miniatures on more tables if you have a stat block that can go with it.
Yeah, because like I can find stat blocks for Minotaur, and some of your models are really cool takes on some classic inspiration that I could probably find stats for. I'm not going to find stats for Inside Out Goatman.
No.
True. Yeah, I over the years I've tried to make sure that I make stuff that is usable in your game, but let's be real. Like you said, the Lambskin Beast is not something you're going to find in a WotC book, at least from my knowledge. So, providing some sort of stats, some lore, and some cool art sounds really cool to do.
So what is the offering? Like there's going to be stats for your models, or are there going to be models for these stats? Like I know you're taking signups right now. Link down into the comments, everyone, to sign up. We really hope that you do. Just give them an email address and you'll find out when this thing launches on BackerKit.
Yeah, so I am new to making like 5e supplements or any sort of, well, I don't want to say official stat blocks, but like a product based on like stats and like PDFs and whatnot. And so I'm gearing for 100 pages. That's my best gauge at this point, because yeah, saying 100. My original idea was talk about over imagining this. I wanted to do like hundreds of monsters. And when you,
I'm here for it, but go on.
well, as soon as you pull up a spreadsheet, put in the numbers for art and paying designers to make these stat blocks, you suddenly go like, oh, maybe not 300 monsters.
Maybe not. Yeah.
So yeah, I've learned a lot doing a small preview of 10 to 12 monsters in a PDF that's also on that BackerKit page. But yeah, it's the idea is a 100-page PDF Going to print has not been a great thing to figure out, and I don't think Comet Lord Miniatures necessarily has the pull for any sort of print line.
Having walked that road myself, it is a whole nother thing.
Exactly. So I'm going to stick to a PDF, and currently it's 8 big bad monsters for your D&D or any, I guess, dark fantasy tabletop game, including the false dragon that is currently on the screen, probably being the flagship like model for the Comet Codex.
Nice. So let me. I'm a little confused. Like, and mostly segueing here. Is the PDF the only thing in the campaign, or is there going to be an opportunity to also get the models to play with those cool stats?
So I guess I'm essentially making content for myself for future releases, because 100 pages we're obviously going to fit more than 8 miniatures or 8 monsters. But there'll be an opportunity to get 3D printable files for these 8 monsters, or physical versions made by Trenchworks.
Ooh. Oh nice. Yeah, we're so deep in the 3D printing world. I often forget that. Oh yeah, you also sell physical miniatures, because that's important, because not everybody has a 3D printer.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much from the get-go of doing 3D printing, I would get people going like, "Oh hey, can I don't have a 3D printer. Can I get this? Can I get this?" And it's like, for this campaign, I'm reaching into the like 5e homebrew content, and reaching out to people who don't have 3D printers as well.
Very cool, very cool. Good Lord, I might have to fight some of these things. Why not, Kristen?
I know what you're talking about. Yes. If you haven't heard, Param is now a victim. He's actually in one of my games. So,
oh, nice.
Yeah, this is going to be awesome.
Playing an adorable kobold fighter. Paladin,
sure.
Sorry. Paladin fighter. He got the sword.
I hit things with a big metal stick. That's all I do.
And you hear voices.
Yeah. And you almost exclusively design for the role-playing crowd, right, Scott?
Yeah, I've recently worked on stuff that's more for display, but anything Comet Lord Miniatures is for tabletop.
Mm-hmm. Now, back to the topic of the physical miniatures and stuff. How important do you think that is for like would-be sculptors or other sculptors in the industry? Do you think that having a physical options is very important part of this, or is the 3D digital files enough to keep a mouth full?
I mean, reality is that I've been living off of like 3D printable STL sales and subscriptions. So I don't think you need a physical line. However, could we argue that like 3D printing is its own hobby, and then tabletop miniatures and tabletop gaming is a hobby within like another hobby? Like it starts to kind of like focus in on like the crowd gets smaller and smaller. It's still a huge, exactly. So like, I don't think it hurts having physical models, but it's a very different game as well. Like the reality of like a lot of creators, you just make as many STLs and throw them out into the void and see if people buy them. Meanwhile, you got to go through all the process of mastering and producing a physical model and hope people buy it.
Well, this might be a forcing you to choose between your darlings, but which do you like more, a really high quality 3D print of one of your models, or one of the physical cast versions?
The questions you've been asking me.
I'm so sorry. I've been so vicious and unfair to you, Scott.
Just roasting me.
I think I've been establishing that you're one of the best sculptors in the hobby right now.
Facts.
True. I appreciate it. You know, so I'll say the casts do hit a different level of detail. But that obviously folks like at Trenchworks, they're working with much better machines than I am. So like whenever I get like a test cast from them or just a proof, it's so cool to see like all the little bits that my printer wasn't able to get.
Speaking of your printer, though, you do have some examples of what you can do, right? And some of them like to show. Yeah.
Yep. Do we go with the largest one I got
All right.
here?
Sure. Let's see it.
Let's see it. Let's see it. Holy moly.
Oh, I love him.
He's so happy.
I have to say,
you can.
Yeah,
okay, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I have to say thank you for the sliding in the D20-esque construct thing. This thing is on. It's kind of like a beholder and a dragon had a baby. I don't even know how to describe it. It's a multi-limbed monstrosity with is how many eyes am I looking? Is this singular or is there? I mean, there's eyes also on the D20 thing. There's just all sorts of stuff going on here.
I'm not sure it has any eyes. It looks like a mask it's wearing.
Yeah, it's wearing a mask. It has no eyes.
Okay.
It reminds me of No Face from the end of Spirited Away.
You got it.
Nice.
That was my inspiration for this one.
Nice.
All teeth. Yeah,
really
let's
cool.
see if I can... Oh man, that looks so cool. Like it's nice to see an actual physical production that does justice, because do you make your own render images that you market with? Because they are glorious.
Yeah, I decided to try to up my render game during my break, especially for the Comet Codex. I was speaking with another artist, and we're talking about like marketing yourself and posting, and he mentioned, like everything you render out and post, it looks like a product image. Why not try to like make it more illustrative and like I want to say engaging, right? Where you don't see the full miniature and it's more of an evocative thing rather than just like, oh, here it is, full view, see everything.
These remind me of like the really cool movie posters you would get leading up to a blockbuster release.
Yeah, I believe my spouse mentioned Alien for this one.
Oh, very cool. Yeah. I get the vibe. Yeah. And honestly, they do sell, and like it goes back into that leaning into the story with like these odd angles focusing on it. It's kind of like adventurer eye view, or the last thing the paladin sees.
Yeah.
the last thing the paladin sees. I love it. Do you have another test print? I thought you said plural. I'm excited.
I got a whole bunch of them.
Yes, I see them.
I mean, show it. I want to see it.
Lambskin
It's
Beast.
Inside Out Goat.
Yes. Oh God, see, that is, you're saying your printer didn't do that good. It doesn't do as good a job as the cast. That's still freaking phenomenal levels of detail.
Mm-hmm.
What was that printed on?
Mars 4.
Mars 4.
Oh, Mars 4 is a wonderful printer. Very, very high detail. And what are you using for resin there? That's very crisp.
Yeah.
Standard Elegoo gray. This is primed.
Okay. I was like, that collar is just like perfect.
Wait,
for screen
put it up
capture.
again. That's primed. That's still stark detail for being on prime too. Like, nice.
Oh, wow.
I want to see it.
Yeah, my camera is fighting me to focus on something.
It's wanting to do like the very shallow depth of field on that monster.
It was trying to do that same, a cinematic reach view, terror claw coming at you.
I noticed that the Comet Lord themselves is one of the miniatures that they've been marketing as part of this.
So that will be marketing something else.
Something else.
Something else.
Something else. I'll get into it. right after showing off this thing.
Oh, it's the big old dragon.
Yes.
So yeah, it's on like a 5-inch base. I decided to like go past the 5e measurements for this thing. So,
Yeah.
At a certain time, you just go, oh boy, and that's the size category.
Yeah.
Akuzuru in chat, grab hands. Yeah, honestly, like I would be like any of these models would be one of the pride of my collection on the shelf.
Yeah.
that's kind of the goal with the Comic Codex. Like I realize I'm not going to put out like a whole army of miniatures alongside the Codex. Like obviously I would love to give a miniature for every entry in the book, but Comet Lord Miniatures, my strength is going to be giving you like some really awesome display pieces.
Well, one of the things I'll say is you do also offer a bunch of posing for a lot of your minis too.
Oh, that's a Centaur Beast. I thought it was just a really cool Minotaur.
Yeah, no, it's God, this is reminding me very specifically of something. What? Oh, it's way cooler than the ones in WoW. There's something else. Diablo? Does Diablo have a mod? I want to say it has like a quadrupedal demon like that. 2 did. Did you play 2?
Oh yeah.
No.
I'm trying to think of which demon it is.
And what's the story with Mr. Smiley here?
Oh, so the false knight. I'm going to try to make a whole line of false creatures, inspired by the false Hydra. So yeah, like the false dragon breathes like a miasma of like mind-altering like fog. The stat block in the PDF for the false knight. It's the terrible thing the designer and I worked on was it's actually an ooze that reforms into like a knight-like appearance, or like the mockery of a knight. But this thing grabs heroes and drains them of their memories. So it'll actually steal your proficiencies, your spells, your languages. And eventually it can steal how you look, because it is a shapeshifter. And once it has your memories and your appearance, you can't trust anyone. It suddenly becomes the thing.
I like it. I did a similar monster for TPK, and I vibe with you very much on this.
And is it big? It looked like you presenting it as big. Oh, you have
it's
it
the
here.
Smallest one.
I see that as the Paladin Death Eye view, Param. That's you're on the ground and you're looking at the thing up above you. That's what that
look
is.
At that. Like your standard hero is going to come up to its shin. The smallest one is still bigger than a hill giant.
I love David's comment. What if it steals my executive dysfunction? I like this. Yes. Can I weaponize my ADHD against this monster? Take my distraction.
Only if you didn't need your liver.
Oh, he takes it with my liver. Got it. Okay.
Smallest but still huge, a Guzuru. Oh yeah, dig it. Oh, and we've got one more. Creepy Angel. I have to say, I love the base on that.
I was gonna say the base is badass. Is that like a statue hand, or is it like an animate hand? I'm trying to.
For audio listeners, it is like walking down a severed hand of a giant.
I was about to say that has bones sticking out. Okay, that is an actual hand. Got it.
And it looks like it's so welcoming.
It's very serene in its horrible monstrosity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a cruiser who knows the last test print, which is a little egotistical.
Can we see it?
Well,
I have a suspicion.
It's called the Sculptor.
Ta-da.
Very cool.
It's very cool.
I have a certain resemblance to another sculptor we know. Do you also have a third arm?
I was about to say, we do have the extra arm, and do we have a little nod to magicians with the 6 fingers? Is that what I'm saying there?
Yeah, so it wasn't actually a nod to that. I more so just wanted that kind of Kingdom Death creepiness of like it kind of looks human, but there is something wrong about it.
I mean, with the 3 arms, it's got very vibing the classic Fomori thing. So, like, I don't know. Are we looking at some self-esteem issues right here on display? I'm a little concerned, Scott.
Nah, he's got all the confidence.
The base is just covered. I think it's like 64 mannequins that are like the chisel. I made it look like a chisel is like just kind of scratched off the face and tossed them to the side.
Yikes. I do like the comment from David. Was the angel with the giant severed hand? It could just be the biggest mage hand ever. I like that. Yeah. The Tenzer's floating mage hand disc combo. I like it. Do you have any other? I mean, you alluded to another project. Is it too early to talk about this other project?
So the Comet Lord render, what it probably will be advertising in a way. I'm going to be opening up mentorships for sculpting.
Oh, that's so cool.
Very cool.
And why is mentorship important for sculpting? Like, what does this add to the community?
So I've been working with Peter Marbacher, creator of Angelarium, pulled me onto a art academy he's working on called Huckleberry Art Academy, and I'll be mentoring on there. But I think the idea is to help other artists kind of find their creative voice. And yeah, like if I can help other sculptors, find their creative voice in the venture of like making miniatures or doing any kind of sculpture art and or digital sculpting art, then that sounds really awesome. Kind of like I'm not sitting here hoarding all the knowledge that I've gained over the years of sculpting. But if I can help someone find the creative voice, it sounds awesome.
And like, are you going to be teaching all types of sculpting or sculpting specifically towards miniature production?
Obviously, my specialty is miniature production, but I think like a mentorship, I imagine it's seeing, getting to know someone, seeing what they need, trying to find those blind spots for them, and like, empowering them creatively, rather than me. I don't want to like overstep or like oversell. Like maybe one day I'll do classes. I don't know. Maybe I'm not. Like this will be my first mentorship, so it'll be something new for me.
Okay, awesome. And if I guess there's no place to like early sign up for that yet.
If you Google Huckleberry Art Academy and go to the classes section, you'll see my name up there. And I believe there is a sign up below, and you can also join their Discord server.
And speaking of sign ups, they can also sign up for your campaign already as well. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure people knew that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to. I feel like I have just said that every day for the past month, as like the social media posting just keeps going. So it's
hence why I'm saying it. Yes,
it does get exhausting and kind of I always feel a little bit bad self-promoting out into the world, but it's like something you've got to do if you want to succeed and let people get to experience your wonderful art.
Yeah. I mean, like every time I post, and it's just like, oh, by the way, there's this in the link, or links in the comments and stuff like that. I'm sitting there going like, oh, I am sick of like self-promoting, and I'm sure other people are sick of it as well. But then
not of you, but of myself.
Yeah, and then I get a sign up where someone downloads the free PDF, and it's like, okay, I reached someone.
Yeah. And I guess that's worth re-emphasizing. There is a free preview PDF. Go sign up and get the free PDF to get a sampling of the wonderful, horrific things that Scott has created.
And buy some minis while you're at it. There's some amazing sculpts. Pick them up.
Like, that is a wonderful back catalog to go through on Comet Lord's website.
Yes, very much.
Ignore the orange renders. Those are those are from my first year or first like couple months.
It's okay. They still 3D print.
Yep.
Anything else you'd like to shout out to, or where other people can follow you? I know you've got a well-stocked Twitter and Instagram.
More so the Instagram. Trying to get people on Twitter, that's a mystery to me. But I'm Comet Lord at Comet Lord Minis on Twitter. I think everywhere else is Comet Lord Miniatures. I got a Discord server. I've got that backer kit sign up. There are many places to be notified when my next project goes out. So it's as Kristen mentioned, I also stream on Twitch.
Awesome. Well, anything you want to shout out to, Kristen?
Nope. I'm just basking in this majesty. I was all about Comet Lord all day today, talking to people.
I'm super happy to get to talk with you again, Scott, and really very happy. This was not a trap. We're sorry for the spicy questions, but you're just such a wonderful font of knowledge that I could not help myself but tap it.
Well, also just that you've actually displayed vulnerability in the community. Like, I feel like a lot of people don't take that step to do the self-care and to watch out for themselves and to advocate for themselves. They let this churn for like monthly things and this like consumption. Like, it's just like one of your demon monsters trying to suck you all the way down to your bone marrow. Like, I'm glad that you've provided an example to artists out there for a lot of things, a lot of self-advocacy, a lot of creative control, and just the whole thing. I applaud you on so many levels, and I love your stuff. So
I appreciate it. I hope artists like, if I can be an example of like take care of yourself, respect yourself. If I can be an example of that, that's great.
Well, make sure you check out Comet Lord Mini's website. Make sure you go to the campaign page. Make sure you follow them on Twitter. Not Twitter, Instagram. Also Twitter, if you happen to still use
everywhere.
That platform. And watch the Twitch streams. We'll have links to all this fun stuff in the description and in the comments. And until next time, I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param.
I'm Kristen Sowards, and don't forget to use your screen protector.